As we usher in a new decade, let's look back into the past 10 years of gaming. Covering two console generations with a range of stylized and hyper-realistic art directions, 2010 to 2019 was a revolutionary time for gaming. And what better time than now to recap the best games of the past 10 years that continue to shape the industry today? Now at first I had every intention on making this a top 10 video, but there were a few games that really stood out that just didn't make the list that I thought that I'd be remiss to not mention. So this will be an honorable mentions video, as well as me detailing what my intentions were with this countdown overall. And before I start, I laid some ground rules for myself. Each game must have been released in North America between 2010 and 2019. Now that's important because some of these games were released in Japan and other countries in 2009, but these games had to have been available for me personally to be able to review them and make this list completely fair. I'm also including one game per series, so if it's one series with, say, 3 games, I will only pick one, which will be my personal favorite. No remakes of previous games. And lastly, I had to have played the game in its entirety. If I had started a game and not finished, I wouldn't qualify it for this list because I don't think it's fair for me to completely review a game without playing it fully. You may notice that a few key games that deserve to be on this list may be absent, and that's likely because I simply ran out of time to play them or simply couldn't invest the time. January 2010 marked my first full-time job out of college, and I've continued for the most part to maintain a full-time career since then, so I've missed out on many of the open-world games that boasted 100 hours or more of gameplay throughout this time period. When you work 40 hours a week, you learn to pick and choose what you may have the opportunity and motivation to play. Of course, you'll see a few exceptions to this, but it will explain a few games that you may feel are missing from this list. And finally, games are rated on 3 factors: quality, entertainment factor, and my own personal taste. Some things that may have suffered just a bit in quality, I may have enjoyed a lot and learned to overlook its shortcomings. I tend to gravitate toward adventure games, action games with fluid movement, and character-centric RPGs, so you will see a lot of this preference in the list. And without further ado, let's get into my honorable mentions for best games of the decade. First up is Saints Row the Third. Saints Row 3 is an over-the-top and unapologetically hysterical action game by Volition. While the Saints Row series follows a formula similar to Grand Theft Auto, it's so much more than that because it refuses to take itself seriously, and that's what's so refreshing about it. Bouncing off the earlier games in the series, you're the leader of the 3rd Street Saints, bound to take over the city of Steelport. And from the moment you leap out of the airplane in the introduction into mid-air gang warfare pandemonium, it's a wild ride from start to finish. Whether your weapon of choice is a tank or the penetrator, there's something for everyone who likes high-quality action and a sense of humor in Saints Row the Third. Next up, we have Detroit Become Human. Detroit Become Human is a visually gorgeous game by Quadratic Dream that follows the stories of 3 androids. Connor, a detective tasked with investigating deviants, which are androids who have betrayed their programming. Kara, a domestic worker who escapes her abusive employer with his daughter in tow. And finally, Marcus, the leader of an android revolution in a hostile and ignorant world that doesn't accept outsiders. Each decision that you make influences the story, and may have dramatic consequences. In fact, there are thousands of possibilities. You can cultivate the experience based on your choices. And if you make a mistake, you can go back and replay a level from the beginning. This is something that I chose to do a few times on time detective missions where I didn't find every clue the first time because I'd protect wholesome android Connor with my life. Overall, it's a game about robots that makes you genuinely question what it means to be human. A long-awaited continuation to the series, Devil May Cry 5's high-octane action and iconic characters live up to expectations in every way. The game revolves around Nero, Dante, and V, a brand new character shrouded in mystery. When Nero's arm is stolen by a cloaked figure, he sets out to find who's responsible. At the same time, a massive demonic structure called the Qliphoth rises in Redgrave City, and Dante's tasked with defeating the one behind it all, Demon King Urizen. With its action-packed gameplay, excellent soundtrack, and beloved characters both new and familiar, Devil May Cry 5 is a welcome return to the series I fell in love with over a decade ago. Thanks so much for watching. Although these 3 games just barely missed the cut, they all deserve to be recognized as some of the best of the past 10 years. In the next video, we'll dive into the first half of my top 10 games of the decade. Subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon so that you don't miss it. Now, what do you feel about these selections? Did you get to play any of these 3? If not, I would highly recommend each and every one of them for vastly different reasons. But at least 2 out of the 3, if you have a great sense of humor, these are going to give you endless entertainment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.